this video, we're going to look at the SWOT analysis, a little bit about what it is, why you would carry out a SWOT analysis, and some of the things you might want to think about while you're doing that. So, starting off, SWOT analysis is a way of looking at the things that we're good at, the things that we're perhaps not so good at, to identify perhaps where we need to do some additional training. It can be applied at a personal level, so you can do a SWOT analysis on yourself if you're thinking about progressing in your career or you're thinking about developing yourself. It's a way of finding out what you're good at, where your strengths are, and also where you perhaps need to work a little bit more or where you need help from other people. But equally, SWOT analysis very often can be used to help a company to understand where it is. If a company is looking to develop a new strategy, it might allow us to find out what the company's strengths are, where its weaknesses are, what it should be doing. If it's thinking about a particular strategy, it can decide, is this a safe thing to do? Is it a risky thing to do? So it's allowing us to look at different variables and consider how they may impact. So a SWOT analysis is made up of 4 elements. Obviously the SWOT, each stand for different things. So S are strengths, W stands for weaknesses, O is opportunities, and T are threats. So a SWOT analysis is an analytical tool. As I said, it allows us to analyse a situation. Really, it's looking at the current position. It's looking at today. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where are my opportunities and where are my threats? So it's allowing you to look at what's happening today. Do another SWOT analysis in 6 months' time, a year's time. The findings may be different. So it's something that you probably need to do on a fairly ongoing basis. It needs to be something that's done fairly regularly to allow for that. So your strengths and your weaknesses are things that tend to be internal, whether it's internal to you personally or whether it's internal to the company. So if we think about a company, a strength might be that they have a good workforce who are highly motivated, highly skilled, and really good at their job, and they enjoy coming to work. So they've got a really solid workforce, so that would be a strength. If on the other hand they had gaps, so they've got lots of vacancies and they can't fill them, then that would be a weakness. So strengths and weaknesses tend to need to be internal to the company or internal to the person. Opportunities and threats are when we look at the external environment and we think about what are the opportunities. So if you're a student going to college, going to university, could be seen as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn new things, an opportunity to meet new people, an opportunity to develop your career. You know, without going to university, you wouldn't get a degree, and that may limit the type of jobs that you're getting. So it's an opportunity to expand your career horizons. Once you're finished and you've completed your qualification, you've got your diploma or you've got your degree, that is then a strength. So something that is currently an opportunity in the future could be translated into a strength for you. So your strengths and weaknesses tend to be the situation currently for you. Your opportunities and your threats are things that are potential in the future to become your strengths and weaknesses. So they're opportunities that you can grab a hold of, take advantage of. And the threats are things that you have to be aware of, that you identify that could interfere with your plans. So watching the news currently and the students being told that they've got to stay locked down, that there's lots of restrictions on what they're able to do, that could be a threat because they're not getting advantage of the experience of being at university. It's not just about the learning, although they're learning online, and you may think that's an opportunity, you may think it's a good thing, but for others it's taking away the experience of studying, and it's causing problems. So that in itself could be a threat. If you don't have the interaction with your friends, you're not getting a chance to get to know other people on your course, you're not able to actually turn up and engage in classes, so that could be a threat. Okay, and equally for companies, you would be looking at these sorts of things. So if the interest rates go up in the future, at the moment we don't know, fair chance it's what's going to happen, but it's not happening just now, so it's something for the future. So it'd be a threat that interest rates go up. If interest rates go up and companies have borrowed money, they're going to have to pay more back to pay those interest rates, to pay increased taxes if the government puts up the tax levels. These are things that might happen, and for companies, they have to think about, what are these threats? How are they likely to impact on my company? And what can I do to try and minimise the damage that these threats are going to cause to my organisation? Some things that could be identifying that there is a threat, that if you've got a lot of workers who are getting older and they're all due to retire at the same time or within a couple of years of each other, that could be a weakness because it's describing your current workforce, but it's also a threat. You can't guarantee that they're going to retire at a particular point in the future, but that is a risk, and you're trying to identify the risk. So you're looking and saying, right, that is a risk. If my employees all leave at the same time, what can I do to minimise that risk? How can I avoid that? So that's what you're trying to do when you're analysing the situation. You're trying to think, how's this going to impact on my business? And if they don't respond to a threat, it will become a weakness in the future, because if they don't think about, how am I going to plan to replace those employees who have left, then when they leave, the company's left with a big gap. It's left with vacancies that suddenly it has to fill. And depending on what those jobs are, it may be more difficult to fill those. So that then becomes a weakness. And as I've highlighted, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, the things that you identify could possibly fall under more than one category depending on how you look at it. So don't feel that because you have something in a strength, so for example, attention to detail, making sure things are correct, can be a strength. And from my background, having worked in a law firm, something like that's really, really important. But if you get too caught up with doing that, it can also be a weakness, because you spend so much time trying to perfect something that you end up spending too much time making not really that much difference. So it could be a weakness as well as a strength. So don't worry if you're putting things in more than one category. Just think about why you're putting it there. What's your justification? So thinking beyond that, when we're doing a SWOT analysis, whether it's, as I say, whether it's a personal SWOT analysis or it's something that you're doing for the organisation, you have to think about why you're doing this. What is the purpose in doing it? You don't do it just because it's something that's in your calendar and you do it every 6 months or every 3 months. You're doing it for a particular purpose. You're doing it to see, is the strategy still fitting? You're looking to change direction. You're thinking about the next steps in your career. There has to be a clear purpose attached to it, and you should be very clear at the beginning before you start doing it. What am I actually assessing? What am I analysing? What is the situation? Ideally, if you're doing a personal SWOT analysis, then it's useful to get the input from other people, but ultimately it is your SWOT analysis. It's your perception of how you view things. And that's something that's really important to bear in mind when you're thinking about a SWOT analysis. This is going to be down to your own interpretation, your own perceptions. It's going to be based on your experience. So it's really important to try and get the input from other people as well. If you're analysing an organisation to find out what future direction you want to take, you want to get the input from other people, because Someone in finance will have a different position, different interpretation from someone in HR, from someone in marketing, from someone in operations. And you want to bring all these different ideas together so you've got those different perspectives, different ways of looking at things. So you want to make sure you're getting that input. Make sure that what you're doing is analytical, you're not just describing. So linking back to what I was saying before, think about what's the impact, how is this going to impact on the company, what might happen. So you're analysing and you're trying to look at the positives and the negatives of everything. As I said already, you are going to be subjective. This is going to be based on your experiences, your own personal history, your, to some extent, what you're interested in and what you're not interested in. But you have to try and be objective rather than being subjective. And one way to try and help you achieve that is making sure that there's more than one person involved, because your biases, your subjectivity are not going to be the same as someone else's. So you're more likely to pick up where it's personal feelings or personal opinions that are shaping your decisions rather than being truly analytical. The last point is really important, and it seems so obvious, but you do not want to do your analysis and then just stick it in a drawer and say, right, that's it, I've done my SWOT analysis, I don't need to do anything else. You're doing it for a purpose. Come back to the very first point here. You're doing this for a purpose. Make sure that that is carried through. If you're going to write a CV based on your analysis, make sure you write that CV. Make sure you start applying for jobs. You put it into practice. If you're doing it to develop a company strategy, you want to make sure that you're working on that strategy. You want to make sure that you're developing your ideas and your plans based on the analysis. It's not something that should just get buried in a drawer. Well, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully that has proved of interest to you and has been helpful.